Hello everyone, welcome back to Chez Lanoix, Richard's Kitchen, where I'm going to share with you some different ways to cook and pass the time in these times of COVID. I'm going to begin by putting some hand sanitizer. This is made by my mother, who taught me everything about life. Organic hand sanitizer, 70% alcohol, has shea butter, cocoa butter, 70% alcohol, and essential oils such as lavender, jojoba, and lavender. If you're also interested, she makes these wonderful soaps. If you want to show a loved one what you're thinking about them during these times, imagine what your partner's going to think when you give them this as a gift. Aside from the fact that you're someone who thinks about luxuriating in a bath, but if you're lucky, they'll think about them giving you a bath and rubbing this luxurious soap on your body. Anyway, today we are going to make Tigrillo. Ecuador is a country that, in my mind, produced two amazing things. First, my lovely wife, Alexandra, who's Ecuadorian. Second, amidst this amazing cuisine that, for some reason, unbeknownst to the world, Ecuador has one of the most amazing cuisines in the entire world. One of the things that I really love, and every time I visit, the first thing I go for is Tigrillo, which is a breakfast food made from plátanos. I'm going to show you how to make this today. It's very simple. Begins with a plátano. This is a yellow plátano because we already peeled all the green ones. This recipe calls for green plátanos. Plátanos are amazing. Here in New York, in the Latin community, is primarily, somebody's going to get upset with me, but I grew up amongst Dominicans, so this is a Dominican staple. My mother always had 500 different jobs. She drove a gypsy cab. She did lots of things to support her two children. She couldn't afford a babysitter. She either left us at the public library on 100th Street all day long, and hence my love of books and love of reading. But the second thing, she used to leave us with our next door neighbor, Doris, who's Dominican, where we ate plátanos every day. So this recipe begins with a green plantain that, after you peel, looks like this. The thing about plátanos is that they are very healthy, and you can make them so many different ways. Most commonly, people think of plátanos as fried plantains, which is a wonderful way to make them, but you can boil them. You put a little oil on the skin, and you just stick them in the oven, and when they spread open spontaneously, they're ready. This is the most amazing dish that you can have during these times of COVID. And again, super, super healthy. So what I've done is I've peeled and I've chopped about this size. I have my boiling water ready to go already. I have this last one that I'm going to chop, and I'm going to put all of this in the boiling water. That's going to get things started. Now, when you chop them up like this, they don't really take very long to cook at all. Here's a little trick for you. My ex-wife taught me this. If you have a little baby at home, instead of just relying on these like canned, bottled baby food, which I'm not sure how healthy those things are, you can make your own, just potatoes, yams, yuca. Slice them up very thinly, boil them in water. It takes 5 minutes. If you slice them up nice and thin, you mix them into a puree, and you can add vegetables, almond milk, so many wonderful, nutritious things that you can feed your baby. If the apocalypse comes and there's no food in the fridge, in the supermarkets, you can rely on this to save yourself and your family. So, next step, again, as I mentioned in my first edition, everything is ready. You have some cheese. What kind of cheese is this?
Fresco.
Huh? Fresh cheese. But I think you can use any kind of cheese. This is what traditionally is used in Tigrillo. Fresh cheese. I have my onions and garlic. I have my eggs, and you're putting it about for every 5 plátanos, 3 plátanos, you're putting 5 eggs. We're gonna scramble that up, and then chorizo, Italian sausage, merguez. I'm sure there's a traditional way to make it, but let's forget about traditional. Sure, start out with a tradition, but then don't be afraid to play, create. This is all fun. It's about enjoying yourself. It's gonna come out delicious no matter what. So I've heated up some grapeseed oil. So I recently learned for cooking meats, use olive oil and things like this. For if you're cooking chicken, if you're cooking chicken and beef, grapeseed oil is better. So we're cooking meat, so we use grapeseed oil. Okay, I'm going to begin with my onions and garlic. I'm going to blanch them. It should take about, by the way, I think the traditional recipe begins with like green onions. If we didn't have any here, but so use what you got. So my lovely wife Alexandra this morning was an amazing human being. So many different levels. She runs a ballet school, runs businesses, gyms in Ecuador. She does Ironman competitions. Every day I get up and say, and what have you done today, Richard, that's of any value? Except save lives in the emergency department. I guess that's my only saving grace. But she asked me, she's writing an article, she writes these articles for a newspaper in Ambato. Ambato is her city in Ecuador. And the question is, what, as a family, what do you do in these times of COVID with your kids? And she asked me the question, if you were in this situation with younger children, what do you think is important to teach them? This question frustrated me because I tried to teach my kids so many things, to which they said, I gave it a thought for a second, and I thought of a couple of things that I thought would be extremely useful, not only for the kids, but also for the parents in these times of COVID and beyond. I think one of the most important things that you can teach your children and do for yourself and do it as a family is to meditate. Look inside. That's what this is all about. It's looking inside, looking into the abyss that we, in so many ways, try to avoid. I'm going to add the Italian sausage now. We try to avoid it so much. It's our friend. Don't be afraid of it. But really what it does is it provides your kids a resource. It teaches them that they can sit down and they don't have to constantly entertain themselves, be entertained, bug the world, bug you. And once they have that, find that inner strength, that inner peace, can you imagine? I mean, it opens up a world to them. That's this imaginary world, that's them. That's powerful. So that's what I would do, is one, start by teaching them how to meditate. We're going to come back to this idea. The second thing is I would have them do the morning pages. I mentioned this before, and I can't tell you how important it is. The author is Julia Cameron. The book is called The Artist Way. It's written about, 35 years ago. And it's not just for artists. I mean, it's helped me tremendously as an artist, as writing. But in essence, it boils down to, and if you can get yourself a colorful book for your children, I love the Moleskine books, right? 8 by 11, and this is an old book, and you can see it's completely filled up. I have many, many of these. And the whole idea is you write 3 pages. So for younger kids, maybe it's just 1 page. But the idea is you're writing stream of consciousness, and you're writing whatever comes to your mind. I'm just gonna get this ready. You know, it's stream of consciousness. So if you say to yourself, and you have to teach your kids this, if you write down, if you say in your mind, you're thinking, I don't really feel like doing this, write down, I don't feel like doing this. It's whatever comes to mind. And get your kids to stick with it for about 2 weeks. Because in the beginning, it's just tedious. Again, first thing in the morning. But what happens is magic. We're going to come back and talk about magic. It's as though, again, after about 2 weeks or so, it's as though something takes your hand and starts writing for you. It's as though you're getting in touch with your higher self, your guides, your angels, your muses, but it's something else. I mean, and it's so distinctive that it's you know immediately that it's not you, and you will have this holy shit experience. So imagine giving that to your children, that source of inspiration, like their imaginary rabbit friend that can talk to them and teach them. And this is the other thing that meditation does, and I would come back to this, is you open up through meditation. Once you learn to get really deep and explore different levels of consciousness, entire universes open up to you. You know, I was fascinated by comic books. I learned how to read English. I mean, I learned to speak English reading comic books. When I first came to the United States, I only spoke French and Creole. And I was left back in school. I didn't speak English. And comic books were my savior. Because again, we were very poor. You know, I spent my life on Riverside Park while, you know, friends at Columbia where I went were exploring the world. I was playing basketball in Riverside Park. That's the only outlet that I had. All you need is one basketball and you just occupied 10 kids. But I was fascinated by Doctor Strange, right? There's a movie now. And the comic books are amazing because Doctor Strange would explore the astral planes, which fascinated me. And I can tell you, I've explored many different planes in my life meditating. I started when I was about 13. But it's a gift you're giving to your children that they will thank you for later. Related to this is it's a bond. I'm just going to put this off the fire right now while the plátanos are cooking. Let me see if they're ready. There's no magic to this. In another minute or so. So, you're doing this as a family. You're sitting down, imagine the bond that you're forming. Do this with your partner before you make love. But just, do it in the morning together. My ex-wife and I used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and meditate together. It's a powerful, powerful tool, something to share. And if you take one pencil and you try to break, it's very easy. But if you take 3 or 4 together and you do it, there's strength in that. And it's something that you can talk about. So, we talked about giving them meditation, giving them the gift of themselves through the morning pages, the creativity, the things that will come out. The third thing is books. If a child learns how to read and develops the love of learning, you have given them the greatest gift that they can ever receive, because there are entire universes in books. It grows their imagination. So what I would recommend is encourage. Now, this is important. You're going to tell your kids to read, but you're not. You're on the internet all damn day. Kids look to us as examples, and if they see us doing things, they're going to follow suit. So that means you have to pick up a book also, right? So second, get everybody reading. Pick up time to start with and just say, you know what, little kids it's going to be less, but we're going to read for half an hour a day. Start at half an hour, then you're going to go to an hour, and then do whatever you want after that. But do it together. All of you sit down and you read. That's where the magic starts, right? Everybody's reading together. Second, after you have everybody reading, take a small amount of time and read to each other, read out loud, right? Have them pick the section of the book that they liked, that they really felt was powerful. That's ready. So now we're going to crush this. First I need to get the water out. Actually, I'm going to do this like pasta. So have them pick a passage that they really like. Everybody gets to do it, which means that you need to listen to something that you might not be interested in. But the whole point is that you're teaching them something really important. To discern something that they really like, something that they think is great. It may not be great to you, but you need to go along with it. That's part of being a parent, right? You need to go along with this. Then, this here. They're going to start loving reading even more because they have an audience, they have listening. I remember my mother used to make my sister and I, Evelyn, read out loud. And it wasn't a novel, it was whatever, science book or whatever it is that we were reading. A mortar and pestle would be nice, but it doesn't matter. So just take something and mash away. That's such a nice feeling. It's organic, it's like making salad, an avocado, and just rubbing it in. It's one of the things I learned when I was vegan, just to feel your food. It's organic, and this reminds me of that. So I was saying, my mother used to make us read out loud, and it was such a pain. But let me tell you, it helped me so much in life because it gave me confidence. Later in my life, I was an academic emergency physician for many, many years, 25 years of my life, until I had 2 kids going to college and discovered that academics didn't pay. So for the past 5 years, I've been doing locums. So teaching your kids to have a voice and to speak is a really beautiful thing. And it's a beautiful thing for you. For many years, I did something called Nights of Sharing, where I would invite friends, and instead of, having drinks and the usual, I don't know where I got this idea from. I've been doing it since I was in my 20s. I'm sure, like much of everything else that I say, none of it is original, and I take credit for none of it. But in my Nights of Sharing, I would invite friends over, cook for them, and then I'd pick a theme. And so, for instance, on some nights, the theme would be the Word. And people would have to pick a passage from a book that they read, that they loved, and would share it with everybody. Some people would bring their own writings. Okay, so now, wash my hands again, and we're going to put this in here. Let's bring this back on the fire. Sea salt, extremely important. My wife says no. I'm going to trust her. Let this heat up again. So, where was I? We were talking about, do you remember what I was saying? Reading out loud, finding one's voice, being able to share a voice, sharing what you think. Imagine giving that power to your children. And for me, it helped tremendously. I was giving lectures, doing what I'm doing now, which is my favorite pastime, talking shit. That's a gift that you give to your kids. And I'm happy that my mother, I don't think she had any of these highfalutin ideas. I don't think she had any of these ideas, but they helped me form my ideas that I have now. So we're going to add some salt. Add some pepper. I love this thing. I think everybody should have a Ruby Rosa. I'm going to tell you about the Ruby Rosa some other time. But I like this. Maybe we'll add some seasoning. My lovely wife approves. Nothing in this world that's in the kitchen that's cooking should not have cayenne pepper. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it just creates such wonderful flavors. So now that this is in this state like this, we're going to start kneading in the plátanos. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. Don't lick your hands while you're cooking. This has nothing to do with COVID. It's just, my mother sees you once licking your hands while you're cooking, she will never, ever again eat in your home. It's not done in her house. And I learned many things from my mother. Okay, so we're gonna knead in the eggs, the sausage. And at some point we're going to taste it and figure out whether we need... Oh! Let's be a little bit more gentle. Let's not waste food. We don't have a dog or a cat here that can lick everything off the floor. Yes. Add some butter. Make it nice and juicy. depending on the moisture content, we might need more moisture. We're gonna add some almond milk. So we're gonna let that butter melt before I bring it in. Let that sit for a second. So I'm writing a screenplay right now. And I started to write a musical, but I was so taken away by this theater piece. The musical was inspired by this amazing, I think the greatest Brazilian singer alive. Her name is Liz Rosa. And she plays with the greatest jazz piano player alive, Misha Piatigorsky, who also happens to be my piano teacher, was my piano teacher. I had to give that up. Now, this is Tigrillo. Now we're going to take a little taste of it with a separate spoon. I think it's amazing. Maybe a little bit of salt, a little bit more salt, maybe a little bit of almond milk. Cheese. So Liz is, look her up online. She's inspired me to write this musical for her, where it's kind of a Faustian tale, where she makes a pact with the devil and forgot, as we all do, to read the fine print in between the lines, and has to pay a price for being the greatest Brazilian singer alive. And one of the things that she has to sacrifice is that she can't find love. And in this story, I tell the tale of Ruby Rosa. Ruby Rosa was a real life figure. Let's taste this again. Oh my God. I think that's good. Look at that. And then when you serve this, maybe I will share with you, maybe, what this looks like on the table, because now what you do is you serve this on a plate, and then what we're going to do now is we're going to fry an egg. Maybe we'll go ahead and do that. We're going to fry an egg. Fry 2 eggs actually. And then you serve the egg on top of this. How long is this running now? How long?
28.
Okay. Thank you for your patience. So here's a trick that I learned with frying eggs that revolutionized, really upped my game. And yesterday I showed you about scrambling eggs. Gordon Ramsay taught me that. But for scrambling eggs, for frying eggs, the trick is as soon as you put the oil in, one is low heat, right? Now watch this come out to be a disaster, but let that get nice and hot. And as soon as you put the egg in, and you hear that frying, what we're going to do is add a touch of water. It's like you're sauteing the eggs. And one, they don't stick. And second, they cook evenly, and then you can baste them, right? You start taking the juice and add a little. Actually, you know something? I don't always do this, but what I do is sometimes is add some butter to the oil that gives the eggs a flavor and some juice. To baste it with. Okay. So, in this play, my musical, starring Liz Hossa, Misha Piatigorsky, and moi, I get to play the devil, of course. So she finally, okay, so you see this, it's like going like this and already it's sticking. And what you do is you just add some water. Not a lot. And then you take all that delicious juice on the side and you start basting your eggs. Now look at that. That's love. So you're cooking it above and below. If you're really good, you can try to flip that baby over, which I'm not going to do. Because I'm not that good, despite what I think. So now, you can take this, make a nice little... Now, if I was serving this, what I would do is to put it, oh, this is going to get overdone, is put this in a bowl first, right? Put it in a bowl so that it has a nice shape. And then you put the egg on top of that. So, half of cooking is the food itself. The second half is the amount of love that you put in. Okay, now check this out. It's not sticking, right? It makes it easy to get to. So we're gonna go like this. How's that? I think I left it on just a little bit too long because normally it doesn't stick at all, but I haven't mastered this. Oh, that one's not so beautiful. Don't show that. That one's not so beautiful. Look at this one. So, right, in this story, we're gonna make some coffee now. What breakfast doesn't go with coffee, right? Coffee is life. By the way, this is an AeroPress, which I think makes the best coffee in the world because it's what you're doing. It's like making espresso, but not as strong, and there's no bitterness. And it's so simple to make. I'll show, when I take it apart, I'll show you because I already did it. But I put my coffee in here. I put water. And there's this plunger contraption. gently, not too much. Hear it? And you don't make it go all the way down because that will extract bitterness. We just want love, no bitterness. Now you can put less water and it will actually, now sometimes what I'll do, because I'm not making espresso, so I'm adding water, so it's more like an Americano, which is, my wife and I, this is our preference. We have Americanos, which is half espresso and half water, so adding this amount of water gives that taste. Stronger, less, not as strong as espresso, but stronger than brewed coffee, or our second go-to, which is a French press. So, right, I was telling you about my musical. So this devil controls everything, right? It's this idea that there's a master orchestra, this orchestra playing and has us all on strings. We think we have free will and all that, but we don't. And that's the whole idea of meditating and the morning pages, is that you will actually learn this. Because don't take my word for it. Because intellectually understanding this is meaningless. You have to actually feel it, embody it. But then all of a sudden, this character shows up, this charming, really handsome guy who the devil can't control. And Liz falls in love with him. And it turns out that he's described as a regular Ruby Rosa. So very quickly, because this coffee's made and our food is getting cold. So he's sitting down at the table and the devil serves him, and it's, you know, those large peppercorn things, like the things to serve, right? And he says, do you know that what this is called? And they're actually called Ruby Rosas. So who is Ruby Rosa? Ruby Rosa is this real character from the Dominican Republic who was started out as a private, like a lowly person in Trujillo's army. And he was a real charmer, really good looking guy. And Ruby Rosa seduces, for those of you who don't know history, Trujillo was a brutal, vicious dictator who, on par with Duvalier in Haiti, who killed my father, but he was a brutal man. And so he not only seduces his daughter, but then they're supposed to get married, dumps her. So all his friends are saying, dude, you're dead. So Trujillo calls him. Now that's a good cup of coffee. So Trujillo calls him into his office, and everybody thinks that, you know, he's going to kill him right there on the spot. And Trujillo looks him in the face, shakes his hand, and says, I admire you for your courage, but the truth is, my daughter's a bitch. And to finally meet a man who's willing to stand up and say no, you know, I want a man like you in my army. And he promoted him to lieutenant in his army. This is a true story. This is no nonsense. So Trujillo goes on afterwards to travel all over Europe. It is said, this is also a true story, that Ian Fleming's James Bond was patterned after Rubirosa, right? Because this guy used to race cars. He was believed to be a spy. That's why he was traveling all over Europe. But he was also a ladies' man, right? And in his life, he went on to marry Lauren Hutton. You know who Lauren Hutton is? Of the Lauren Hutton fame, she was one of the richest women in the entire world. There was a famous French actress who's like the most, I forget her name, and then went on to marry Zsa Zsa Gabor. And proceeded to dump all of them onto the next one. And they asked him what was his secret one day, and he says, it's just, I give people attention. So it's said that he could be sitting down with an old lady. When he was sitting down with that old lady, he would give her 100% of his attention, and the most beautiful woman could be walking by naked. He wouldn't look at her because he was talking to somebody and he gave that person his undivided attention. That's love. But when they asked Zsa Zsa Gabor many, many years later, she's old now, right? They asked, like, what? Like, how did this guy be so successful with women? Why did he, like, go on to marry these, like, really rich women and blah, blah, blah? And she laughed. I don't know if you know Zsa Zsa Gabor, Green Acres, and she was a famous actress during the 50s. And she kind of, like, blushes and she goes, you want to know the truth? And she looks into the camera. This was, I believe, on the Dick Cavett show. And then she goes, that's why. So, you know what I'm talking about, right? So, those large pepper grinders, to this day, they are known as Ruby Rosas. So, there's a Ruby Rosa character in my musical. I'll tell you more about it later. Anyway, we're going to eat breakfast. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining us. Would love your comments. Stay safe. Cook. Share love. Be love. Make love. Ciao.